Good morning.
Good
Good morning.
morning.
We're together because mine won't even launch on my computer. We don't use
Oh,
hardly ever in our district. So
is Teams better for you guys, or what do you usually use? Google Meets or?
Google
Yeah,
Meet.
usually good.
Okay.
But we got it.
But we're good. We're good.
There you go. You figured it out. No
Wanted me to
worries
add
with
stuff,
being.
and I was like, I don't have time for that this morning. It won't let me.
It's our computers think it's a Monday too.
It is a Monday.
Yeah, no worries for you both being together. That's completely fine.
Oh, good.
We appreciate that also. Because then you have one less tech piece coming into the system.
And sometimes with our rooms being right next door, it kind of you can like we get reverb sometimes. Uh-oh.
Can you see my screen now? Sorry.
Yep.
I didn't mean to throw anything off. I was just jumping right on.
No, it's all good.
And sorry, I think I didn't have a chance to respond back to you guys since we were having trouble scheduling. I did, and I knew that tomorrow was a challenge, that I had shifted it to next Tuesday in terms of a visit. Does next Tuesday look better for you guys?
I won't be here. I have to do, I'm working on my intensive interventions licensing. And so I have to be at the high school for my practicum hours on Tuesday.
Let me look real quick. And we can talk through that as we get, because I'll verify a lot of your like contacts and just scheduling. That's why we were trying to get this on the calendar. And like I said, Kelly was like, oh, just go ahead. That way I'm not sure it's being covered, but I'll pull up the calendar just like, oh, okay. I wanted to make sure it didn't share in the same space. That way I remember to look at it in terms of date. Um, Does sorry, I'm looking at the Tuesdays.
Just remember that on Tuesdays, I'm out for about an hour and a half in the middle of the day every Tuesday for community.
Community outings, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. We take note of all these things, so as we're planning to, we try and make it easier across the board. So if you see
And
us typing or taking notes,
I usually take an assistant with me too. So there'll be two of us out of the room.
Do you take all of your students or just some?
I just take 3 at a time.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Sand.
Do you have a regularity to when you're going to the high school, or is that just again like kind of like Michelle mentioned with the 1 hour on Tuesdays? Are there other like weekly things that you're usually out when we look at schedules?
No, sometimes my daughter has a running appointment on Tuesdays. And it's usually like yeah, by the time we're done with it, it's an all-day event. So, and that's just kind of up in the air because sometimes my husband can take her and sometimes he can't if he's traveling. So I can
Yeah.
let you, I don't have anything. I don't think I have anything in the next, yeah, couple weeks. Ah,
And
it's scheduling nightmare over here. Sorry.
and when we go in the community, we leave at like it's lunchtime and then we come back. It's late. We come back like, oh, an hour-ish after everybody else is done with lunch. So it's like it's that midday. So they go out to eat into the grocery store. So you're welcome to be here. I just want you to know that that's going on.
No, we
It's
always
already,
appreciate that.
crazy is crazy. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Pam, did you say on the 8th that you're at the high school the whole day or just a part
Yes,
of
I'll
the
be at
day?
the high school the whole day.
Yeah, we'll look at that after the call and then send along dates because we didn't want to do tomorrow because it would be again, you wouldn't have a time to even review kind of or process what we talk about today.
Oh, thank you.
For success, we can understand that. So we'll look at the dates and such and then we'll send an email out later today just with dates. That way you can cross-check like your daughter's appointments. And again, it usually is going to be on a Monday, Tuesday, or Thursday for our visits. So that way you can kind of cross-check, what that looks like or if there's any other things that pop up. So we will
I will
get
also, I'll be out on a Thursday. I'll be out October 10th. I'm out the entire day.
pretty good that it's in your brain. You're thinking ahead.
My brother is disabled and my mom is going to Hawaii. So I'm watching my brother. That date is stuck in my head.
I got it. So you're wanting to make sure it's like ever salient, it sounds like.
Yep.
That way you're planning ahead for your classroom and everything, I'm sure. So we'll talk through a little bit more in terms of also like, I'm assuming, is this 8:30 time usually pretty good for you guys to connect, like with the exception of like when you have the scheduled like special ed meetings?
Right, on Mondays. Yeah,
Yes.
this is our PLC time, so yes.
Yes, this is perfect.
And is it, when we were talking to the high school, they had said that the first Monday of each month is when they had like the dedicated, I think, special ed meeting. Is that the same for you guys?
No, this is the whole elementary special ed PLC that we do, like, I think it's once a quarter.
Okay.
And they'll probably set the next date today. Is
Okay.
typically how that works.
Yeah, so we'll send those out and then you guys can always let us know so we can adjust proactively, just like with the visits. So we'll set those out, but I did make note of the Mondays at 8:30 being a good time. Okay, so we'll jump in. Feel free to ask questions. Again, I would say the informational meeting recording that I sent out and then this one are probably the two most formal meetings. It's just so that we kind of get all of our ducks in a row in terms of contacts, good times. And then the collaborative sites is a research project as well. So just like with our trainings, like I described in more detail in the informational meeting, it's really to help in collaboration, look at, again, the day in and day out realities of being in the classroom, being in a community setting, and what it takes to put these things in place with all of the other realities. So it's not meant to add additional burden to you, but to really partner in that way to help other teachers in the grander scheme that are working with similar students or in similar settings as a whole. So that's why we do the research to kind of correspond with the training. Our whole heart is in the training and helping you guys put pieces in place. But much like you, we want to make it easier for others that are also trying to, put these things in place with a range of, kids and a range of realities. And that's why we do kind of the concurrent component. And we try to compensate / give you a lot of credit for any of the time you're connecting with us on calls or in visits or doing data or anything like that, by tracking the hours that those things take. And then also you'll get, as you are taking measures and such or participating, we have Advera cards that are kind of, we understand you like getting tools and resources, but we also understand that it's sometimes nice to get like a gift card or money to help with your supplies. And so over the last couple of years, we've started working to get, whether it was Amazon, but now we use basically kind of debit cards. So as you're doing the measures, we recognize top of everything else you do. So you'll get more information about that as well. So like I said, and again, if you had a chance to go through the informational meeting, I went into much more depth in terms of, where the collaborative sites developed and really hands. As a whole, our model and our center began through funding through the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. And that was earmarked for Riley. And so again, it was to help with autism services, 20 years ago. And we know that we've continued to see numbers with autism and developmental disabilities rise, which is why, again, we've been able to continue to work and reach more and more people like yourselves. Moving past that time, funding has come through the Department of Education, through IU Health, and then ultimately we do run as a business or an auxiliary within the IU School of Medicine, and partner with districts like yourself to be able to work together. In terms of the agenda today, what we'll do, we'll just introduce ourselves because sometimes I love, even though we know each other kind of informally, I always like to hear kind of where people are coming from or kind of what you're excited about and being able to partner this year. We'll go over the data that we had collected on our visit, the on-site data collection. That's kind of like with your students, we would definitely consider that like a pre-post test, kind of like when you do like IAM testing or NTBA testing or any of those really broad testings. I'll go through that because I wouldn't say testing is the wrong word, as is evaluation. It just helps kind of look at, overall where things are at. And again, it's done at the beginning, middle, and end of the year for us. I'll explain kind of where we're at in the model and then where we would like to, kind of start and working together this year. And just again, verifying, where things are at, and where you'll get communications from.
Okay, hey, hold on, oh wait, I think I found it. I found it. I lost you somehow. We can still hear
We can
you.
hear you. We just can't see you right now. Hold on.
I don't know what I did. Hold on.
I can appreciate him
There it
liking
is.
this.
I found you.
Mr. Wall joined us too.
Oh,
Okay.
hi. We can't see you, but it's great to hear your voice.
Oh,
Here to
sorry.
the side. We're
You're
all,
okay.
we're all here.
That proof of life, right? So we'll go over today. The objectives are the pre-assessment findings. So we've just again gone through the on-site data collection. We'll talk a bit about our curriculum and what that looks like in terms of the collaborative sites. And then preview where we'll look to start with modules and activities as we're getting going. Which is again why we wanted to kind of connect before we're able to be on the visit, so that you guys have more of a kind of vision for what visits typically look like. Our visit, our data visit is very different than what our typical visits are, because usually we'll have a time for coaching and modeling and connecting, and that was more just being able to come in and observe things as they're going on day in and day out, and then answering any questions you guys have. So in terms of introductions, and again, just so that we're all on the same page, Audrey, do you want to start with your introduction?
So my name is Audrey Williams. I work as a community transition specialist for HANDS, so essentially a trainer in different community settings. My background is in special ed, so I got my teaching license K through 12 from Ball State. And I got into it because of my younger sister who was born with a very rare chromosome disorder. And she was told she wouldn't read, write, walk, and talk. And meanwhile, she just graduated high school last year and is doing all of those things times 10 and doing really, really well. So I kind of walk the personal side of things as well as the professional side of special education. But I love being able to work in the field in a different capacity now, instead of direct services with students, getting to work with other teachers and other professionals that are supporting. So.
And I'm Tiffany, so I'm the assistant director. My background is as a school psychologist and neuropsychologist. So I worked in the schools for 10 years and then I've been at HANDS for 15 years. So I get a chance. So I've worked and lived in the schools, and then also get a chance to work across all of our programs. How about you guys?
Sorry. I'm Michelle. I, like Audrey, have a sibling he's 364 days younger than me. So I don't know anything any different. Got my bachelor's degree from Indiana State. My master's is from IUSB. And same thing, like I never imagine myself doing anything different because of my brother.
I'm Pam, and I've been teaching 38 years now. I got my degree in deaf, hard of hearing at Ball State a long time ago. And then I have I have my licensing and visual impairments as well. But I think my first love is in the intensive interventions classes. So I'm just super happy to be back in the classroom again.
Aww.
Hi, I'm Josh Wall, principal here for 4 years. I have my license in special education as well, and taught in the classroom for 10 years prior to that, instructional coach for 2. And I love learning more. I mean, I don't have my license in moderate. I have my license in mild, so I'm really interested. I love learning about more that I can learn about severe and moderate. So I just love learning, and glad to be here with you today.
Awesome. Well, thanks for giving a little backdrop. It just helps us knowing kind of where we're all coming from in perspective. So we appreciate that.
I just thought I would mention this is year 37 and it's my last year. So if that helps guide your year for my classroom too, because it'll be like us starting over next year with whoever comes in. Doesn't mean that we're still not going to work and do new things, but just to help you know that.
Yeah. I think they had shared that in advance, so we'll center a lot of our time in Pam's room. Not that we won't or abandon you, Michelle, but like in building that, since I'm assuming Pam, barring other things, next year you would be helping whomever steps into Michelle's role. And that way you're building the program, even though you're two different age groups, we'll treat you kind of as a program, kind of like the high school is 3 classes, but we treat it as a program when we're coming in. Since you are teaming and partnering and you're not kind of on your own island. So we appreciate that, Michelle. We'll definitely drift between, but try to center, kind of in Pam's room and that application. So awesome. In terms of, and congratulations as well. I don't want to leave it at that.
It's bittersweet, so.
In terms of pre-assessment, like when you guys are starting at the beginning of a year, whether you had your kids the prior year or not, or if they're new to your setting, we always start out with kind of a pre-assessment, and it just lets us kind of appreciate the culture that we're stepping into and the program, both in terms of what you're using and what data you're collecting and what your approach is, as well as your team and staff. But also just being able to then layer onto that. So before doing anything, we always try to come in and just observe, review kind of what you're doing with tasks or teaching or kind of your initial thoughts, which is where the interview and such came in as well in terms of asking questions while we were there. The other component that you've probably started to get are emails from either hands or hands to you, where we're just verifying kind of points of contact, your class rosters. And that just lets us see, as I mentioned, kind of what the realities or kind of what we call the topography or what your classroom looks like. That helps us at the grander scheme in terms of helping others that are in your types of settings as well. So those will be consensus, and then also, like I mentioned, some pre-assessments. As we get your student rosters, I know that our team asks, if you want to send out links to your parents or if you'd rather like printed materials to send to your parents. It definitely varies district to district, class to class. Those consents in a sense just help your parents know, that we're partnering in this collaborative site process. But also allows us to be able to look at records or if maybe we're coaching on a certain concept or we're working on assessment or data, it gives us permission to be able to work with you guys on that. So we do send out materials. You're always welcome to overlay that with, and I would say a lot of districts will use the letter, but maybe put their logo and give additional information in terms of being able to get those. Once you get consents, in a sense, we send out a couple of measures that help us just understand kind of the intensity of your kids as well. For all of these, as I mentioned, you get credit for doing that, so that we definitely appreciate this is above and beyond, but again, helps both our partnership, but also other classrooms like your own that are working to put these things into place. So specific to what we had done within the on-site data collection, we call it, or it's named, the measure is named the school work. Work stands for written observation and review of records of kids. So school work is not specific to our hands model. It's really evidence-based practices in education, autism, and disabilities. And we use this across a lot of districts, not only in Indiana, but beyond. And it really just looks at a high level in terms of at a very high kind of gold standard level. What do these things look like in your setting in that snapshot? So again, based upon observation, review of records, and interview. And so again, as I'm talking through the 5 components that are in the schoolwork, I'll align it with our hands model, but hopefully you'll see that it's model neutral. And it gets us information that just lets us know is kind of that broader pre-post test, kind of where you're at. And then we'll take more discrete rubrics on our visit, and that really guides kind of our work together. So for the first component, we call that program design, and it's very broad. It really overlays several areas of our model, and really includes that individualized instruction that's reflected in the IEPs. So again, what is the diversity of goal areas that you're working on? What are the teaching strategies you're employing? What was the data that was used to inform the instructional areas? And really, again, what is, the tie between the present levels, the goal, and the specifically designed instruction. So for program design, a lot of times we see that improve or the score go up, even if we're not targeting goals, because you start interweaving, more teaching or more proactive elements based upon what you already have in place. So it's a very kind of global piece in terms of the broad program. The next category, assessment, really it lines pretty well with our assessing unit in our model, but really is more broad than that. So it's looking at everything from informal assessment, what are you using to guide your decisions, for everything from visual structure to, like I mentioned, your specifically designed instruction. Again, what formal data are you taking? How often are you taking it? How often are you reviewing it? Who's involved? For behavior data, who's driving that or how often is that being reviewed? So it's a really broad kind of assessing and setting goals kind of area in terms of how you're using data. The third category is environmental control. And as the name portrays, it's really that building the environment section, or all of those proactive components that come in place within your program, but also really kind of building wide, that lets people know kind of what the expectations are, where things are occurring, how much is needed, how long things are happening, and really just helps with that proactive visual cueing, because we know visuals are more permanent than any of the auditory directions that we're going to provide. It helps with consistency with kids, but also between staff. So it really does filter into building the environment, but also part of that, kind of proactive or PBIS and behavioral support area, because we're really helping set both the students and our staff up for success in terms of clarity on those components. The fourth category is teaching. As the name implies, it aligns with that, or it aligns with our teaching unit, but does kind of embed other areas of our model. Really looks at how the approach that you're taking from academic to social to functional skills, what skill areas, how you're teaching them kind of in more discrete ways, so more maybe one-on-one, but then what does that look like when it's in a group or when they're in the hallway or at the lunchroom? How are those skills then being generalized, and how are you using the data ongoing? And then the last category is behavior intervention. So it's not, as when we train in behavior planning, it's not just consequence-based behavior intervention, but it's really the data that's guiding kind of your broader proactive planning, kind of those broader PBIS or positive classroom management approach. That includes everything from the communication with your students, and is it more directed or open-ended? Are they finishing on success? What's kind of the cueing or prompting looking like? So again, it's more than just behavior plans and more that broader classroom management, and that three-piece approach to behavior intervention. So the proactive, consequence-based, and skills teaching components. Much like our model, we have that crimson border on our model that I'll pull up in a moment. And that really portrays that things like prompting, differential reinforcement, and collaboration are essential across all of these areas. So whether you're thinking about goal writing and you're teaming your goals with your related service providers, or you're communicating with home and school in terms of data or interventions. So collaboration is so essential across all of these different areas, getting input from your staff as well as others that are on the team. So as I mentioned, each of these components, we evaluate them as like the gold standard, or like when everything is fully in place, what would that look like? Sorry, when I share screen, it goes to a different screen. So that's why I'm using the PowerPoint to guide as we go through it. I did want to figure out how to navigate the multiple screens here in the morning. It's a Monday. So you'll see here, we set our bar as 80%. And I have no doubt we'll make a lot of progress this year. We're just starting, and I would say your scores look great, even though you might be like, "Ooh, that looks really low." But I think what's really awesome is that your program design and your overall kind of program is already starting out, higher than most. I wouldn't say that, program design is always that high. or assessment. Both of those I would say are usually much lower because when we go into classrooms like your own, I would say a lot of people have focused in on like environmental control, like schedules and visual structure. And so that's high. And then these have gone to the wayside. So I think that's awesome and a compliment to you guys that you've really thought about the individualization. You're taking data. And these are not far behind. So again, I wouldn't look at these as terrible scores or low scores, but it helps us just get that baseline in comparison to gold standards for all of the areas that are in our model. I will also say that we took data in both of your rooms, but again, kind of like you had suggested, Michelle, we represent them as a program. And so again, one score may have been a 2 and a 1, and we just average those out in the score. So as we're going through, as I mentioned, this is a pre-post test. So again, the modules, we have each of our modules reflected in this. We'll have those at classroom levels, but as we're talking through, we'll treat it kind of as a program in terms of scores. So again, what we do is, like I said, I want to give you guys applause for these being your high areas, because I would say almost never are those the high areas when we're starting in a program. We see a lot of people doing well with environmental control, but not nearly as many doing well with data or individualization. So that's awesome. We will start in the environmental control area. And on our first kind of real call and visit, we'll show you kind of where we're moving within the modules in that building the environment section. It will involve and help continue to bring these areas up, but I think will help kind of as a starting place and really kind of your next highest area. So in terms of the next step in pre-assessments, as I mentioned, you've probably already been getting emails just verifying things like class rosters and starting to get measures. That'll be the online data collection. That's all aggregated together as well. Our data team really just uses participant IDs as they're monitoring that. But if there's ever a time that you'd rather complete something like on physical copies, we're always happy to bring those or send those as well. So as we look at kind of how that data then translates into our model, I know I kind of foreshadowed that as I was talking through, but want to give some of those components as we're talking through so that you can more objectively or visibly see kind of where those starting parts are or put names to those modules and such. A specific component of our model, and if you're familiar kind of with evidence-based practices in the field, is there's a lot of literature on single strategy interventions. There's much less on comprehensive curriculums. So really the intent in our model was to help bring and bridge all of that together in a comprehensive framework. So our comprehensive curriculum is rooted in ABA, or applied behavior analysis. And all that means is that it's very data driven. So much like I'm going through, we're doing assessment, we monitor ongoing, and we utilize evidence-based practices, like I said, that are inherent in the field of autism. So we always say it's essential for autism, but beneficial for all. All of these are really reflected in the world of education and disability more broadly. The framework will give us a systematic process in working together, but as I'll talk through and we'll continue to kind of pull back to, it also gives you that framework for when you're stepping in, whether it's direct work with a kid or looking at your program as a whole, for where to come back to in that decision-making process. And as you'll see, we're very hands-on in terms of the training because we utilize the behavior skills training process where you're getting the content, seeing it in place in terms of modeling or coaching, and then you're getting feedback on that and getting a chance to give us feedback in terms of what's practical or what that looks like, or working together on implementation that still maintains the fidelity of a practice. So the core components, as I mentioned, each of what we call a module is represented by this little black, like the black terms here. So physical structure, visual structure, schedules, choreography, work systems are each discrete modules. What that means is each of those have a very rich research or background or backdrop to them. We know they work and they're essential to instruction. So we're looking at what each of those look like within your area, with your kids, with your team, and with what you're really wanting to accomplish in your program. So again, the curriculum is each of the modules. The framework is portrayed kind of by these arrows and working across that. So as we work through our model, we start on the core. So just starting on the same page with that positive perspective on kids, wanting to utilize evidence-based practices in your programming, understanding autism, disabilities, and special education. And then we work into this building the environment section. When we have really great environmental control or environmental pieces, that makes our students more independent, less anxious, and we really are able to see who they are. They understand what's expected, how long they're working on things, who they're going to be working with, what they're going to be working on, and what's coming up next. It helps us build in that independent scheduling and otherwise as well. That allows us to get better assessment, set smarter goals, and then really to individualize that teaching. And then ultimately to generalize. So for Pam, you're going to Michelle's room or that next room or out into gen ed or out in the community. That's what all of us want and really hope is that we're able to set them up for success in that real world application. The bi-directional arrows in each of these corners just mean that when we don't see the progress, we have really great goals. We think we've got the teaching, hammered out, and then we just don't see the progress. It gives us the kind of process to come back and look at the goal, or maybe select more data, or maybe they've gotten so independent we can up that bar in terms of the schedule type, or maybe there was something about the choreography that just isn't working or jiving within your setting. So it gives us that framework to kind of come back and also move forward. As I mentioned, the training process is where we're really looking to give and kind of be on the same page with what that module or content area is. You'll have access through Canvas to our modules. And then on the calls and visits, we'll talk through what that looks like in your setting and really bridging together or collaborating on that. On the visits and or kind of prior to the visits and preparation, we'll show videos or schedule times to model or set up that particular component. Those will always be shared with you in advance. So looking at your choreo, maybe we're on an assessment topic and we're working, going to team kind of assessing one of your kids. That would be in the visit email, and we would have, planned that in advance just so that we all know kind of that's coming up. Where maybe we'll assess and then you'll assess. So again, just getting that chance to kind of step back and see what that application looks like. And then you'll get a chance to practice. So again, that would be scheduled and implementing with coaching or feedback specific to the module. And then ongoing, as we continue to work through modules, continuing to be able to coach or finesse that area. And then ultimately, a big part reflected here is that as things are being put in place, we never expect that, like one visit, you get everything laid out, but that you're like, ooh, this is working, or this isn't working, could we adjust this? Or I see this, small tweak. I know that's part of what, when we were talking about like your task boxes in the middle of the tables, like you were like, oh, it's a lot to manage with a lot of the individual trays. So we're working on this. So the day in and day out realities of your class. And that's where that reflection, self-assessment, and kind of collaboration helps with, again, the application of the module that still maintains the fidelity of the practice. So as we look ahead, what we start at is the base of that house with the physical structure, just areas that maybe will help with tweaking or kind of working. Again, physical and visual structure very much work hand in hand. And our rubrics really guide kind of what we'll focus on in the first visits and on our first call in advance of the visits that just help us with kind of planning and looking at that component. During the visits, what we'll send in our preview emails, kind of like you guys got before calls and such, will be when we're arriving. We always have a time for observation, unless for some reason, like we need to start right from the get-go with modeling or coaching, depending upon the topic. But usually we're kind of seeing what, if say we've put, new structure in place or a new schedule in place. It's a chance to just see how that's working within your setting or with your staff and students. Then we'll have information about the time, where there'd be modeling or coaching. And then we usually are able to set, and hopefully we can talk through that a little bit this morning in terms of like what are good debrief times for your team. Debriefs are just like, again, about a 30-minute chunk where we're able to just touch base on kind of what the modeling and coaching has looked like, our thoughts in terms of application, as well as the positives that we've seen. So again, it's a nice chance to discuss that module, discuss any feedback, and just answer questions or even provide materials. Do you guys know, is there a common time within your day or even in the afternoon where like would be a good time to touch base? We can look toss out there late on.
During the day is really difficult, just because we have kids coming and going, and so staff is in and out. So even like our special time, like I really don't get to use that as prep
What if we
time.
picked a time that Chuck was here and we could have him kind of, be of a, an extra set of hands? I know it wouldn't be two, but if it was a guaranteed day that he was here and he could be an extra set of hands, could that work during the day?
Yeah, we could
Even
do
if
it
he were
during at
to
the end of the
go
day during our special.
specials, he could go to your classes
Yeah.
with specials.
So
or
for
he could-
me, PE would be a difficult day for both of us to probably not be there. So Wednesday and Fridays would probably be more difficult.
Yeah, Thursdays,
Thursday music might be good.
yeah, Tuesday. Oh,
You're not
I'm
doing
I'm
library?
not doing
Yeah.
library.
So, but you guys are coming on Tuesday, so that's the, right?
Well, they're like Monday, Tuesdays, and Thursdays. I can't remember without looking. So we'll send those dates, and then that may help you guys team and look at if that coverage and special aligns. Before we send any invites out, we'll send all of those dates so you're able to look at that and see again if there's a good time that he's available to cover, and it aligns perfectly with the special that's able to be covered. Then that allows us to kind of set up for success.
Mr. Walden said that Chuck would be available Monday, Thursday, Friday. So it'd have to be a Monday or a Thursday then for our visits for him to be available.
Mhm.
I know for our October or sorry, November and December ones, we were looking at a Monday date. So like we said, we were gonna confirm that. So even though October would be Tuesday, the other two would be Mondays.
Okay.
But we're looking at
Okay,
That works.
yeah.
And then, oops, sorry, I forgot to change that. For, I don't know why I have the e-learning days. So with the web calls, is this Monday at 8:30 time best for you guys for the PLC time? Okay. And then you said you have the elementary PLC once a quarter. So as we send out those dates, then you can let us know if that directly overlaps. So that way we're kind of getting ahead of the game. We understand things come up 100%, but again, kind of sending those out, and you can let us know if it accidentally overlaps with like an elementary one, so we can shift it proactively as well. And what time is your specials typically? Sorry if Chuck is able to cover and it is a Monday, Thursday, or Friday.
We don't have a special on Monday, but
Yeah.
the rest of
perfect.
they're at 3:05.
Well,
Yeah,
that's good. I had made note about it not being during certain specials, and so then I wanted to just close that thought out. So
So we'll figure out a Monday, something that we can do, like,
Okay.
to make
Yeah.
it work.
mhm,
My kids on Mondays are doing crafts, so that would work to have,
mhm,
but I would need extra hands, but we'll be
Yeah.
separate. So I don't know. We'll figure that out. We'll figure it out.
yeah. And Monday, like afternoons for us, we typically kind of do like maybe, like we might watch like a small movie or something like that. And then that gives us a chance to go through our learning materials and make sure that they're all organized. And since we don't get a chance really to do that during the week so much, so.
understandable. Okay, so we made note of that, so we can, as we send that out, then that'll help us just in planning for the visits, and sending times and such, for what time will be best on those Mondays then. If it's during that special block or if there's another good time, you guys can so if you don't have a special and it is just a craft or the downtime, what time does that typically occur?
3:00.
My craft will be like at 3:00. Yes.
Okay.
How long do usually the phone calls take?
So this would be when we're in person. So
Oh,
it would,
sorry. Oh,
no,
yeah,
it's okay.
sorry, I forgot.
Oh, so that would be that November and December date?
Yes,
Okay.
They
Sorry.
would be when you're physically on site. So that's where, like, if we've been there, then we're able to touch base like in the setting or, you know, in while we're still there. So that's where, versus the deep or the web conferences at the Mondays at 8:30. So
okay.
Okay.
So I would probably have to be back in my classroom by like 4-ish because my staff starts leaving at 4:10.
yeah,
Just
it
because they
definitely
have to
doesn't
get-
take.
okay,
It's
perfect.
we usually try to do a half an hour that we
Oh,
were
perfect,
fit
perfect.
together throughout the day. It's just a chance to step out and kind of talk through that or kind of implementation recommendations or next steps. And we'll send a follow-up email always, but it's a nice chance kind of in the moment you know, to be able to talk through any of those components as well.
Okay,
In terms of, so kind of in rounding out, again, we'll send, you know, dates and such along, and I want to make sure we get a chance to verify your contacts also. So as I mentioned, we want, oh, I guess that's where we're at. So I was taking notes as you were talking through in terms of visits and such. It's just a nice chance. I'll make this bigger for you guys. To also verify your contacts. So we have Kelly and Maria as your district contacts, both of yourselves, and then Joshua, we have you on there as the principal. Who else? Is there anybody else you want us to include, whether that's related services or one thing that's helpful for us is to get your paraprofessionals listed on here just so we can get consents sent out and also see kind of what access you want them to have.
You'd want to add Carmen and Jagger to that, so there's our speech and OT.
and Dave Fulkerson.
Oh, PT, yeah, Dave Fulkerson.
And
Maria should be added,
I
correct?
think Maria's up there.
Oh, is she?
Yeah, I had them at the top.
Okay, sorry.
Also-
Okay. What was Carmen's last name?
Elliot.
And is she just C Elliott at warsawschools.org?
Yes, it's 2 T's, I believe, right? 2
Mhm.
T's, yeah. And
then,
Jagger Van Kuren.
what'd you say the last name was?
Van Kuren, VANCUREN.
Would Lisa Sponseller go
Oh,
on
yeah,
there as
except
well?
for you. Yeah.
Lisa's, yeah.
And
Lisa's
what's-
is our is another one of our OT.
Okay.
Jagger is our OT assistant.
Okay. So is he Jay Van Kuren?
Yep. Jay Van Kuren at warsawschools.org.
And then Dave. Do you know what his last name is?
Fulkerson. FULKERSON.
Okay, perfect. And same thing, B Fulkerson.
Yep.
And then is she just L Sponseller?
Yes.
And then for your assistants in your classes.
I've got Lauren Ormsby, ORMSBY.
Is Lauren spelled correctly? Sorry. I can try to.
Yeah. I can't decide whether I need my glasses on or not. Yep, that's right.
Okay. Do you just call them paraprofessionals?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sabina Wallen.
Would you want to share that spreadsheet with me and I can type them in, or would that be easier?
I can. Sometimes we do them on the calls because it's easier, like while you're here. But I can definitely send it
We
if
have
you
a
want.
lot of people.
We do. And for Sabina is SABINA.
Yeah, I can. If it's easier, I can do that. If you don't care to do that,
Oh,
Josh,
that's fine.
I
I'm
can
happy.
type them in.
Cause they'll, when he starts typing, they'll pop in pretty easily.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I can send that because, like you can see, we just make sure we get all the contacts. That helps us all start at the beginning with the right So for, I'll send this and we can get all their contacts updated. Leave it up to each individual school or program in terms of what access you want your paras to have. Do you want them on Canvas, just like everybody else? That would mean they would have access to the modules. There's a Warsaw Google Drive that has all the visuals or anything that might be printed that you're working on. Some people like for their paras to have access. Some people prefer just to relay stuff back. What's your guys' preference?
I think it'd be nice for them to have access, honestly. Sometimes I feel like we don't connect. As sometimes we just lack time to connect about different things,
Yeah.
so.
Okay.
Some will probably be better at being able to look at it than others too, so.
Right.
That's great. We just like to leave it up to you guys in terms of what level, but I definitely appreciate that because I think it's nice if there's something that even will help you guys in reinforcing a concept that then they have access and you guys can help with some of that relaying. Okay. So we will send that out so you can help us fill those in. Joshua, thanks for doing that. In terms of other updates, like I said, we'll get your emails. You'll be getting the consents. Again, we can attach PDFs if that's ever helpful, particularly you guys know your families. It just helps them, know what's going on or allows us to kind of, discuss or work and incorporate different kiddos into the coaching piece. With Canvas, we'll get you added to the Warsaw Collaborative Sites Canvas course. And that just has, again, access to the modules. And it also links to the Warsaw Google Drive. That is all of the materials from forever when we've been working with Warsaw. So there's a lot of visuals and supports. And you'll have your own folder as well within it. But it's a nice kind of repository of different visuals and supports as we're going. We'll also send out all of the visit dates, web conferences, so you can do a cross check of those outside of the dates and times that you've shared with us, just so that we're getting confirmation, and then we'll get the invites sent out. And those should sync with your emails and such. I know that in the past they've done pretty good about that. As we go through, again, we'll send the visits and the web calls. We are in Warsaw 3 times a month between the high school, a consult day, and then your day. So if there's ever any need for us to drop stuff off, always feel free to let us know. Or again, we may just be like, hey, we made those visuals. We're just going to drop them off if that's okay, since we're already up in that area. But always feel free to reach out if there's questions or to ask questions on the visits. We will keep a focus kind of on one module at a time, just so that we're working on really being able to come in and focus on that. We're always happy to answer questions, or if you have other thoughts, we're happy to talk through that, even though we'll keep the focus on that module in terms of application. And as we move through modules. Again, we'll coordinate through you guys, Pam and Michelle, but then ultimately, you guys will help relay or let us know if there's anything that can be adjusted. In terms of next steps, like I mentioned, we'll be getting consents, making sure we get consents from everybody. Those pre-assessments, as I mentioned, we do track all of it in our spreadsheet so that you're getting credit for all of the hours that you're on calls or visits, or when you're doing assessments, you get credit in terms of hours. But then for the measures, because we 100% respect that that's on top of our collaboration in the classroom, you'll get those Advera cards that help offset some of that time as well. We'll send out in the emails where you'll start at in terms of the modules, so that we can start prefacing and preparing for that first visit, confirming the visits and web conferences, and then the ongoing assessments. You will get a satisfaction link after any of our calls or visits, and that's, again, we see that, but in an aggregated way. It just gives us feedback. If you're ever like, I didn't even attend that visit, or I was out, you can always just select that you didn't attend or didn't participate. That's in one of the initial prompts. So we do apologize in advance that it seems like a lot of emails, but it's just helps us in terms of streamlining things between our data and our training teams. Ongoing, your questions most of your emails are going to come from one of our hands group emails. So our general hands email, Our hands ask email we use sometimes for our visit and module communications. Data questions will typically either go through hands or hands to you. That just helps you know that if it comes into one of the hands group emails, most of us have access to those. But it's also just so that you know what, when you're sorting your emails or looking back for emails, it's going to likely come from a group email. Sometimes either Dr. Susie or myself will email as well. So there's a couple emails that you might see also. Any questions on the kind of starting pieces or getting going? We're really excited to get going. And sorry for all of the emails and questions. We're excited to get, a chance to work with you guys. So
I just have a question just regarding the modules. Like I said, right now I'm working on my intense interventions licensing. So I'm
We're
just,
stretched.
I'm,
So this is feeling very overwhelming, I think.
yeah, I know. Yeah.
Helping you.
I'm like going, oh God, another Canvas account. I can't manage the no, I can't.
Yeah.
But I'm just wondering about just the time commitment because I want to do a really good job with this, but I'm also looking at just kind of restraints with my own personal,
Yeah.
completing my coursework and having a daughter that's a senior. Holy cow.
Yeah. Well, and honestly, I think that's one that you can be the best advocate for yourself. Like if that is something that because you mentioned Chuck's available, I think there have been times where if you're doing it during school hours, so we're not asking you hopefully to do much outside of your school hours. The modules usually take about a half an hour to get through, sometimes a little longer, but again, you can go in and out, and hopefully most of it's review, and just make sure that we're using the same terminology and you're seeing the examples as you're going through. You will always have, usually our visits are about a month apart, so that's about 4 weeks to balance out. That's where, things, well, for the teachers, again, appreciating your situations always, like they've said, whether it was, one of the sites, they had their assistants also go through the modules. And so they had arranged where, I forget what time it was, a block of time that they had, they rotated it. So each person each week had a chance to do the module, again, during their hours. I'm not saying that to you, but thinking about, that coverage. The modules will be kind of asynchronous so that way you can do it as feasible. But then on the calls, we'll hit on the high points and specific application to your classroom. So again, you're able to kind of break it apart as possible. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's like I said, the visits usually you'll have more notice again because you'll have the fall and then we'll get the spring dates as soon as possible. So you're able to kind of balance that scheduling out, both with your direct kind of building support with Joshua and the Chuck. I'm not sure who Chuck is, but he sounds like
He's just our building sub.
Okay.
He also gets pulled to do a lot of other things. So
He does.
yeah.
Again, it sounds like I know Joshua and then Kelly and Maria have been really supportive. If it is that he can cover, one of the Mondays that we're not there, or not on a call where you could kind of get your head in the game for that. So again, I think as you get going, you can see, what works, but I know that or if, other support's needed, always feel free to let us know if it seems like a lot too, because we can relay that back. So I had reached out to Kelly and I'm like, we're having trouble getting these scheduled. Would it be okay to use this date? And so then she's like, yep, that's totally fine. So again, definitely let us know when there's questions or concerns.
I just know from, knowing some of the other teachers that you worked with in the district about, they've all said that it's a lot of work. And so I think that's why we're feeling that way, because we're both struggling just to keep our head above water right now. So I think we're just trying to be really honest with you and let you know that we will do our best and we want to do a good job, but it's not.
We appreciate that. Yeah. No, and part of the collaboration is meant to kind of offset some of the time. So we'll try to make a lot of the resources, or as we're coaching on something, we may bring samples to help you think through. So all of those barriers you usually fill with time, in terms of making things, or like I said, with whether it's assessment or visual structure, things like that, we try to help offset that material and time piece. And or questions in terms of feasibility. So always be honest, 100% honest, and that's the only way we can work together. We tell that to our own staff as well. If you're feeling stretched, we can't know that unless you're letting us know. So always let us know. We do go at your pace. So like physical structure, or any topic that we're working on. Sometimes that takes us a couple months. Sometimes, we get really quickly through a topic. So even one module, maybe that you take it in October and then we don't move on to another one until, November or December. So again, it'll kind of go at the pace that's comfortable for you guys also.
Anything else?
Oh, hey, no, the only other thing is we were talking about this today. It's like, because we were thinking, oh, it's supposed to be foggy tomorrow. We might have a fog day. If we were to have, like, for instance, a weather event, because I know November and December can be a little bit kind of
January.
dicey.
Oh,
Yeah,
You
just
Feel
never
like
know.
it's January,
It's
February
April in
now.
Indiana. Let's be honest.
We are Indiana. Yeah, is this the best way? Like, so for instance, knowing that you might be coming to visit us like on a Monday, should we just send an email to you, to the group, if there's ever a cancellation or delay?
Yeah, that works. I mean, we can share our email, our phone numbers. I know I check email or I get alerts on there too. So whatever is easier. It does take me about 3 hours to get there from where I live. So I
Yeah.
do leave. So I know Maria's always done a great job at like messaging those, but if there's something that comes up, just even if you're like, hey, that just heads up. I know that helps us. I think Audrey takes about 2 hours. So as you know, we've driven to Warsaw for a number of
Yeah.
years, and even 5 days a week when we've done intensives. So we're used to making the trip, but the more advanced notice, or as soon as you know, and it doesn't have to be well worded even, like, we always appreciate the heads up.
Close. You might get
Yeah,
a.
close.
It can be as simple as that if maybe you're rolling back over and you got the heads up, like.
We typically know a delay before 5:36 a.m.
Yes.
A closure after a delay, it could be 8 o'clock. So, but the good thing is on those days we don't start till 11. So, yeah.
Yeah, I would say the majority of the time when it's a delay, we typically will still come, like if it's like fog or things like
Okay.
that versus rescheduling. Obviously closure, we don't come. That's a bit of case by case, but like I said, doesn't have to be well worded or full sentences. But if you get a heads up, letting us know is always appreciated.
Okay. Sounds good.
Okay, awesome.
Okay.
Does
Thank
that
you.
work for you, Audrey, as well?
Yeah. Yeah. And thanks for thinking ahead on that, Pam.
Yeah.
That's very helpful on our side. And usually we're the ones thinking of it. So for you guys to be thinking that ahead is very
We
helpful.
did talk about
We
it
talked
this
about
morning.
it this morning. It's like,
Oh.
Well, the weatherman said fog Tuesday and Wednesday. So we're like,
fog. Fog? Right?
And then there's
get so
like
much done during a fog delay.
Oh my gosh, right?
we learned that in Illinois, they don't have 2-hour delays. It's either cancellation or school. And
Oh.
so we like mentioned a 2-hour delay and they were like, what's that? And so like it's different across districts too.
It's funny.
So
Okay.
Yeah, we never had it in
Awesome.
Florida either. So
Thank you.
Thank you guys. Have a great Monday.
hey,
You
thanks,
too.
you too. Bye.
See ya.